And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. Vlogcast that comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. This Vlogcast started as a combination of spite, the Streisand effect, because subtext is everything. Just when you think that you can read the show's description and go, okay, yeah, I'm on board, I know what you're talking about. No, you don't. Mainly because I have a hard time keeping it all straight in my own head, so I've got an excuse. And part of the process is to talk about... Okay. I want to go ahead and go on record and let folks know that I've got a shit ton of stuff on my mind. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on very prominently in the news. Very prominently in the news. Not all of it political. I've got a whole bunch of different things that are happening personally in my life at the moment that have made things a little bit more interesting, shall we say. And plans that are in the process that I will probably explain about a little bit later. So if I'm just a little bit off joint at the moment, there is a reason. And don't worry, you've got nothing much to worry about other than the fact that I'm going to be a little nuts for a little while. So if I completely bypass what I just said because I screwed it up because I've got this going over my head, I apologize. Good to be with you. Let me go ahead and do the intros because apparently I need to edit stuff as I'm going along. From the East Coast of the U.S. on Renowned Tech, fashionable, but not as fashionable as last week. Good evening.
You know, my camera's not on.
Well, I was going to just say fashionable and not say fashionably late, but you know what? Whatever works for you, man.
Fashionably late works.
Yeah, it's a good thing my camera's not on. I'm just saying.
What? You don't look a day over 27.
So I've been told, but
The fuck you have, woman. Nobody has said that to you.
they actually have. I mean, seriously, I have had to pull out pictures of my driver's license before to prove my age because people are stunned at how young I look. Seriously. But I have not had a shower today, so I'm a little disheveled at the moment.
My last driver's license, they just renewed my old image, so it was before the beard and everything else and all the gray and everything. So they look at it and they look at me and they look at it and they're like, okay.
Speaking of which,
man, I got old.
The secondary voice from the Aether, from the Midwest of the U.S., where it is bitch nipple cold, Bridget Fitch. Good evening.
Good evening. Actually, it's not so cold anymore. We actually got some rain yesterday. The snow finally melted, and it's supposed to be like 62 in freedom units in a couple of days. Right now, it's only like 38 in freedom units, which is tolerable.
-1, -2-ish. Not so bad.
Well, 38 is, like 2 or 3.
Oh, I misunderstood how you said it. Never mind. Like I said,
Yeah,
brain
above,
can't just...
Yeah, that's fine. It's above freezing for like the first time in a while. And it's going to be unseasonably warm in the next couple of days. And then we have thunderstorms coming through, which is kind of wonky, but my sinuses are fried.
On the bright side, you don't have any pollen to contend with, so there's a plus.
This is true. But I have to admit that my planted bulbs and things that are supposed to be seasonal items are really confused.
And from the left coast, where the airborne pollen is actually charcoal, I.O. Cloud, good evening.
Well, apparently the fire problems have gone down, and I've been sitting at home working on stuff. I got 2 blankets, actually 3 blankets, sent out to the 2 different destinations they're supposed to go to, and I am searching Joann's for a specific type of yarn, and it's driving me nuts because Joann's might be going into bankruptcy.
Oh,
So
no.
Yeah, that could
apparently,
be a problem.
it's their second bankruptcy, and they have until March. So I have this month to find 5 balls of yarn, so I have more than enough in order to do a year-long knit along and crochet along. I'm 2 different things. I've got the yarn for one of the projects, but not for both of the projects. So I'm like, eh.
She
Yeah.
needs spinning yarn.
Joann's is my go-to if I need things like that. The Hobby Lobby is a hard no, has been for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna go like Kmart did. They went bankrupt. They're still open. No, they're still in business. They went bankrupt again. Then they went bankrupt again. Then they went bankrupt again. Then they started disappearing.
Well, I hope that Joann's around here doesn't disappear. There's like
Right.
7 or 8 stores, but still, I'm stressing out over. This is probably the same thing you guys are, and the way that I handle my anxiety, because I really don't want to have another heart attack, is playing with balls of yarn. So I went on a stash enhancement expedition today. In other words, I had sex. Stash enhancement expedition. And it's the way it's spelt. I will put it into show notes. And I didn't find any yarn today, but I did the same thing yesterday on the way to the munch I went to. And I found most of what I needed. But I didn't have the money to get everything I needed.
Used to be Netflix and chill.
Yeah, I know.
Used to be a lot of things.
So I have one more thing to say. Actually, 2 things to say.
Yeah.
Go Bridget, go Bridget, go Bridget. And Tech Sergeant Tech.
Aw.
Tech Sergeant Tech.
No, there's no sergeant by name. I never served. I'm not police. I don't use those sorts of titles because they don't apply to me.
Fuck you.
You can call me
Wyatt.
Graybeard. You can call me
Mr.
Bastard Operator from Hell.
No,
Well,
no,
no,
we
I
will
was never
not
an
call you
operator.
BOFH. No.
But
I'll call him BOFH because he is a BOFH.
But I have been the Bastum Systems Administrator from Hell.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah, I've also been the Bastard Network Technician from Hell.
That's fair.
Hey, man, easiest way to take out a system admin, take down the network.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what's that? You can't get online? Somebody else has the keys now, eh, buddy?
Poor little baby trying to get online. Oop.
Yes. Just make a note in the show notes so that I can remember to put the BOFH archive in the show notes for everybody to take a look at. Which, by the way, for those of you that are able to be awake at about this point and decide to join us because I've got a camera and you don't. That's my claim to fame right now. You can join us by being over in the live chat over there, and we'd be more than happy to say hi to you. Like this. Hi, Stephanie. It's really as simple as that.
Could even
It's not so much that Hobby Lobby. It's not that. It's not so much that Hobby Lobby doubles the price of everything. Is that Hobby Lobby did some things in the last decade that have me irritated, like LGBTQ, anti stuff and birth control anti stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you want birth control? Well, you can't have it if you work here.
Oh yeah, we know.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's why I boycotted them and the hate chicken people long time ago.
Oh yeah.
You know how I got people in my town to go back to Joann Fabrics when they were starting to go over to Hobby Lobby in my office?
How?
It was real simple. I found out a secret about Joann's, at least the one near me. And that was, those coupons that you have, right? And you know how it seems like Hobby Lobby's not honoring some of them? Well, if you go over to Joann Fabrics, they take them. And they're like, what? And they went over to Joann's Fabrics, and Joann Fabrics looked at it and went, oh yeah, we'll take these. And they went back to Joann Fabrics. And they're like, I didn't know they did that. And I was like, did you not read the sign that they have up? So the one near me has a giant sign up behind the registers, and it says that we take most competitor coupons and all manufacturers' coupons. Whereas the Hobby Lobby near me doesn't always accept some of the coupons and such. So there was a lot less negotiating or haggling going on. And, well, a lot of people near me are much happier now.
So I spent the day,
Well
most of the day, playing with yarn, sorting the balls of yarn that I have specifically for the different projects to make sure I have enough for the Irish Diamond Shawl, which requires 2,400 yards. Yeah, about 6 balls of the yarn that I'm looking for. I have at least 10 of those specific balls.
Ball!
I know. And one of the other shawls that I'm looking for requires 12 balls of yarn. I have the 12 for it. I do not have the 12 for the matching one that's crochet from the same designer. It's a free pattern. It takes a year to do. And I'm just... I know the yarn is at that one store, but to get it, it's an hour drive. And it terrifies me because that's an hour on the highway, and no.
Tech,
I know I
Anybody
can't
who
order
remembers
it.
bad clues remembers where my ball statement just came from.
Tech, do you know what this is that I'm showing off on the camera right about now?
A mouse?
I'm sorry. Tech, do you know what it is that I'm showing on the camera right now?
Yes.
What is it?
It is something that we're not allowed to use in the government. It's a wireless device.
It is very specifically what type of wireless device?
A mouse.
Mhm.
Computer mouse.
And what's missing?
Well,
What doesn't it have?
it looks like it's missing one of the foot pads. The skids.
What doesn't it have?
A cord.
What else doesn't it have?
Unless it's turned off, it may be missing batteries too, because I don't see a light on.
It's like pulling fucking hen's teeth with you.
Are you talking about a dongle?
The dongle wouldn't be on the mousey now, would it? What would
know,
normally
but
be
you're
at
trying
the
to hold-
bottom of the... What would otherwise be at the bottom of a mouse that isn't on a laser...
Ball!
Thank you.
Yes.
Like pulling fucking teeth around here sometimes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I thought you were actually trying to
You know,
troubleshoot it.
I'm just...
Well, the light's not on, so there's...
No, because
no,
if we're gonna troubleshoot a mouse, we're gonna troubleshoot one of these stupid things.
Yeah, no, let's not get started on the
Yeah,
blue off. You know, it was a great concept. The idea of having a mouse with a particular light mechanism that would allow you to use it on non-smooth, non-level surfaces was a great idea, but poorly executed.
Plus the fact that it's a Microsoft specific branded mouse. I don't know if that's the reason for it, but when I try to use this specific Bluetooth device on my Linux side boot or on my Linux laptop, it has a tendency of becoming very erratic. Now, like I said, I don't know if it's a Microsoft thing. It shouldn't
It is a
be.
Microsoft thing.
I stopped using a lot of wireless and Bluetooth devices because of either recharging where the built-in permanent battery was either failing to charge or swapping out batteries or things like that, and went full cabled, and I just took the time to do the cable management. But for my laptop, my travel laptop, personal, not government issue or anything like that, I do use wireless devices, and I find that I do not like the Microsoft wireless products. I will either use Kensington, believe it or not. They're still around.
Yep.
Some of their products are pretty good. And by the way, this is not a plug for any of these companies. We don't work for them or anything like that. We're not
Right.
getting paid by them.
My wife used to be an account manager for them, but she's currently unavailable for comment on this one. So
She works in the complaint department on the 5th floor.
sub 5th floor.
No,
No.
it's a joke. A house typically only has like 2 floors plus an attic or so.
Gotcha.
Yeah. My mom always, when we were growing up in my house, we had the basement, the main floor, and the top floor, plus the attic. And my mom would say, "Oh, you've got a complaint about the way things in this household are done? Complaint department's on the fifth floor." In other words, go outside and pray, or just shut up. Yeah. But yeah, no, I've had a lot. I've gone through a lot of wireless products, and some of the Kensington stuff, and some of the Logitech stuff. And I know that with like non-Windows based systems, some of the Logitech stuff can be a pain in the butt nowadays, especially the more current stuff. But yeah, surprisingly, the a lot of that Kensington, like I have a Kensington mouse with a retractable cord. That one works great. I still have it. That thing's like, God, I think that thing's older than my child. I have a wireless Kensington that's a streamline model, runs on a single AA battery. That battery lasts like a whole year. Yeah, I mean, people are like, I gotta get this big ass brand name Steel Series or Hamilton Beach, blah blah. It's like, yeah, and then it breaks like 3 months later.
Yeah. To be clear about it, the only reason I use this wireless mouse is because it's like right here on the office desk, and wireless mouse I've had bad experiences just because of all the wires that I've got, and I was actually using it in conjunction with my phone, believe it or not, because it's a part of a paired set with a keyboard, and if I was typing and I was just using my phone as a document station, well, separate keyboard and mouse, wireless. I just hook up the dongle to the port on the downside of it, and it just worked.
It does look like you are missing one of your skid feet, though.
That's possible. No, they're all there.
Oh, then it was just a reflection on the light.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I get the I'll get the big pad ones for some of the mice that has the big skid pad strip at the bottom of the mouse, and then I'll just cut down to the size when the little tiny feet need a replacement.
Sounds
It's
good.
a lot cheaper.
All right.
And in this economy, I gotta save money.
So let's go ahead and get everything rolling because we got stuff to do, and like I said, we've got context that I have to go ahead and play with because I can. So with 5 minutes on the clock, your 5-minute freestyle is going to start right now. History. Oh boy, is there history. Not just going on, but going on. We've just recently, you might have noticed, crossed over into February. I can talk. And here in the United States, February is, well, it's Black Awareness Month. African American Studies Month. Whichever way you want to be looking at it, it is arguably a bit of a slap in the face because it is the shortest month of the year, but still it is supposed to be an entire month of being far and away more aware, attuned, self-aware as to how things have operated in this country for African Americans. Or, depending on how far back you want to look at it, Africans. And it doesn't matter where these folks came from. The fact is, they're here. And so are we. And the problem is, we are the ones who screwed it over for them. That is our history. Unfortunate that it might be. You see, on this continent, when the white man arrived, all kinds of bad happened. All kinds of bad. Stuff that you probably never learned about when you were learning about stuff in school. Except where the Vikings were concerned. Leif Erikson is credited as being one of the first, if not the first, to make it from the European area over to North America and be able to get back again. And he didn't exactly go raping and pillaging and spreading smallpox everywhere. But some others eventually did, which I can't explain just how bad it was, because there's almost no way to know. It was simply a quantity that simply cannot be quantified. But what's happened with the African American communities here in the United States over the centuries at this point is criminal. Now, I'm not saying that from the standpoint of slavery is criminal. Well, at the time it wasn't, obviously. But what we have done, and we, I mean collectively, we as a society, I didn't do it. Most of us didn't do it, at the very least. Our grandparents, probably not, but you go far enough back, somebody did. It may not have been us that did what has happened, but we're responsible because we're part of that collective. It is our responsibility to deal with it, to deal with knowing the history, of learning from it, of correcting because of it. And regardless of what term you want to use for it, it needs to be done. Because equity and equality are not the same things, and they should be looked at a bit differently one from the other in order to get to the correct outcome. Now, let's also remember that at this time, every day, well, it doesn't matter what day or when it is, but every day is history in the making. And brother, right now, for the last week, we have gone through some amazing historical times. Last week we told you, we warned you, you were warned. You might remember last week, that was the title for the show. You were warned. And well, it's not gotten any better. It's not going to get very much better. The idea that somebody would go ahead and say, yes, I took an oath to uphold the laws and the duties of this office and to protect the Constitution. Oh, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write up some stuff that directly contradicts what the Constitution says is legal and proper. We live in interesting times. We are currently in the middle of history unfolding in a way that will be studied for centuries to come, even if this country doesn't survive the next decade as it is. The best some of us can do is to do the best that we can. That doesn't mean worry about buying up self-protection devices. It means doing your best. Try to be safe. Try to keep everyone you can safe. Speak up. Learn for yourself. And remember that there are two Freds. Pardon me. There are two Rogers out there that you need to live up to. One is Fred. The other is Steve. Don't disappoint either one of them. Please. You know, I've used that line, by the way, before, which was admittedly grabbed from somebody else. That there are two Mr. Rogers in the world. One is Steve, one is Fred, and I don't want to disappoint either one of them. And wow, man, I don't know who it was that said it. I don't care who it was that said it. I don't care exactly where it was. But man, you know, when you understand who these people are, or were, as the case may be, wow, you know, maybe it's just me. I'm deeply impacted by that expression now. I don't know about you guys.
You know who else I miss? Buck Rogers. I'm going to go sit in the corner now.
Well, that depends. Are you talking about Gil Gerard? Or are you talking about Buster Crabbe, who came out to be in a Gil Gerard episode to say, I was doing this before you were born?
For me, the original Buck Rogers is Gil Gerard.
That's okay. Yeah, for the record, I'm pretty sure it was Buster Crab, was one of the original Buck Rogers in the old serials, black and white, in the movie theaters. And he showed up on one episode of the 1977, 78 Buck Rogers series. And he was a starfighter pilot. And he was getting complimented. Gil Gerard's version said to him, nice flying, nice shooting, whatever it was. It's like, thank you, Captain, but I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. Is that a fact? Yes, it is. And it's like, oh shit, the subtext on that is just great, because he literally was Buck Rogers before he was born. So it was a great thing. I'm pretty sure that there is actually a YouTube clip of that. So somebody write it for me.
One of us will find it.
Yeah, it's not too difficult to find it. It's just a question of making sure that it's in there.
Duck Dodgers in 24th and a half century.
Which is a different guy, but still good.
And there's a new person to add to the list of who we want to live up to. That pastor or deacon?
We will definitely hit on that. We'll definitely end up hitting on that a couple of moments. Let's go ahead and run on over to the Horrible Scopes and get everything rolling, because we kind of need to. So yes, it is time for the Horrible Scopes. Those of you that know what your astrological sign is, cool. Those of you that don't, you can make it up as you go along, because it's really not going to make any much of a difference, because that's the way that the astrology works, because it doesn't. And of course, if you'd like to kind of randomize which one you get for yourself, you can get one of those cool D12s with the squiggles on them and decode it from there. We're not going to judge you if you don't want to pay attention to it. Remember, it's 12 astrological signs, not 13. I don't care what anybody else says. And of course, if you want to buy one of those, you can get it from the guys that like us over there, Heart of the Game Fredonia, because they're nice to us. They let me talk about them, and they don't give me shit about it. Heart of the Game Fredonia, hail, hail Fredonia, home of the Blue Devil. It's gotten cold again. It's sub-zero Celsius weather again, which means that the Mimic should be staying indoors and not coming to find anybody. I hope. I don't know. I still need to get back in touch with them again to find out. We'll see. So this is kind of both perplexing and interesting this week. I have a suggestion, two suggestions actually. One for, quote, a favorable horoscope, unquote, for Aquarius, which, I mean, I get that. Aquarius always feels like I'm, putting them down. And I've got an overall theme for brats this week. By word, brats. Well, who said it can't satisfy two people at the same time?
Now I feel old. Thanks.
Okay, so got two different suggestions. One writer with way too much caffeine in him at the time, and zero makeup chances to get this right. Well then, let's get to it, shall we? Aries. If we named a group of young actors from the 1980s, would you know who we were talking about? This list would be Emilio Estevez, Ali Sheedy, Timothy Hutton, Demi Moore, Rob Lowe, Leah Thompson, and John Cryer, who were collectively known as the Brat Pack. And just this past summer, a documentary film explored the Brat Pack movies and the impact on their lives and careers. So this week, look up the movie Brats and appreciate what these young actors had to go through for their art at the time, because it most assuredly was not all fun.
The memories. Taurus, this is going to be a tough sell, but hear us out. Beer brats are simple enough to make and deep on flavor. Slice up an onion, boil it in beer, then add the bratwurst plus some garlic, red and black pepper. Simmer until the bratwurst is tender, about 10 minutes. Then grill them for about 7. Serve on a hot dog bun with mustard and the fished out onion rings. So this week, what do you mean you were expecting to just boil the brats in beer and that was all? What are you? Some kind of a monster? You just boil your hot dogs too?
Guilty.
Never do that again.
So,
And as a disclaimer, I have found a new love for brioche buns, hot dog buns. Those are actually tasty.
the other thing is that um, I've always grilled my bratwurst first. Get the char marks on them, get the grill flavor into them, and everything else. And in a pan, I put all the other ingredients. Once the brats are done, I'll put them on in the pan, cover in foil, put them in the oven till all that other flavor then soaks into them. But I mean, really, that's just kind of personal preference of how you want it to taste and experience it. Gemini.
Do not boil hot dogs.
I wanted to do
Either
Gemini.
Okay, then you do
And
Gemini, and I'll do Cancer Moonchild, and we'll just go in that order. But
okay.
as for
And
boiling hot dogs, if you have the cheap
no.
ones, right? If that's all you have access to, is those cheap Oscar Mayer, you know, not something like Huber National or Bratwurst or anything like that, but just the really, really cheap hot dogs.
At
You
least
can,
toss them in the oven or an iron skillet. I mean, come on.
I
my
mean,
mother
some,
taught me to boil them, so I'm a monster. It's what I prefer. My favorite ones I ever had was when my 20-something uncle was standing at the basement door of my grandparents' house holding an umbrella and cooking not only hot dogs for us kids but also hamburgers for the adults. Best tasting hot dog I ever had. And I actually like hot dogs in romaine lettuce because that gets rid of all the carbs. At least the bad carbs for me. Gemini, we're giving you an actual legitimate task to make your own brats with Jamaican jerk chicken. Yes, it'll involve buying a sausage press, but that's the best part. You get to tell everyone you have a sausage press. See, I have sausage press. I have sausage press. There's only a handful of special spices you'll need to buy, and we don't know if you can ever get them locally, so this week, see if you can get a Scotch bonnet chilies and whole allspice berries from your local grocer. If you can, chances are everything else on the list will be child's play to get. Oh, and by the way, if you're susceptible to spice, maybe buy some vanilla ice cream while you're at it too. Buy Ben and Jerry's. That's
Cancer
my thing. Buy Ben and Jerry's.
That's actually good.
Out of my price range now, though. But
I know.
But good guys.
Mm-hmm.
Oh hell yeah, they're doing
or
stuff.
just make your own vanilla ice cream.
You you could.
Yeah,
And
but I love
if you
berries.
don't want ice cream or you don't want to make it, believe it or not, and most grocery stores do carry this. If you have a problem with heat, right, and you get some buttermilk, and what you want to do is you want to swirl it around in your mouth and allow the proteins in the milk to bond with the capsaicin and pull it off your tongue. It won't get rid of all the heat. No thing will get rid of all the heat. There's just nothing out there for that I'm aware of. But buttermilk has enough of the milk fats and the proteins in it that it will do the job. Just spit it out if you don't want to swallow it. Cancer Moonchild, sauerkraut and mustard. We're not giving you any meat because we're sick of your antics. Saying things like, "Ooh, I hope I can stuff all that juicy meat in my mouth." No, bad cancer. We're not giving you the good Weber's horseradish mustard. You're getting Grey Poupon. And before anyone claims that is the good stuff, no, that's the good stuff. For people who don't know what good stuff actually is. People riding in the back of Rolls Royces don't roll down their windows ever. So this week, be grateful we didn't suggest a handful of mustard packets from the local elementary school lunch line. Although we might all have to go get them, depending on prices.
I actually have some Rush mustard that has beer in it, and it's actually pretty good.
Honestly, if it's on sale and somebody hasn't done this yet, this is really on them. Go get powdered mustard, okay? Or mustard powder. And if you reconstitute it with a little bit of water, the less water you add, the stronger the mustard will be. And you just let it sit to soak up that water, and it's a good mustard. But you can take it, and like you were saying, you can add a little bit of wine to that water and get a nice, interesting flavor out of it. You do a lot with the mustard powder. In fact, add it to if you're making deviled eggs, you can add a little bit of mustard powder to the mayonnaise when you're making the filling. It's an amazing thing. Just having a tin of mustard powder is a must for anybody who actually cooks.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So noted. Leo, back to the spicy section. We're filling you up with something decidedly different. A sausage that you can eat without grilling it. Chorizo. Hailing from the Iberian Peninsula, you can expect there to be lots and lots of heat index warnings on the Scoville scale, and you better plan accordingly. So this week, yeah, you could eat it, as normally comes, meaning fermented and smoked, or you can simmer in apple cider to get a cool, sweet, and smoky combination. Just don't tell the Italians about this. I'm one of the Italians. Fuck. All right, you know what? I know.
We do andouille in this house.
Psst.
Real stuff.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of chorizo. I'd rather have andouille.
It's fun.
Virgo. After we explain about this choice, we bet that you'll want to follow Gemini's example and get your own sausage press. We know you've got a different set of rules on what you'd like to eat, and we appreciate that. Since you prefer kosher and halal meals, you'll be able to make your own sausages using beef or veal instead of pork. Sure, it's possible someone will say you're just making a hamburger in a fleshy tube, but it's so much better than that once you mix in the sausaging spices. So this week, you'll have to order the sausage press. Looks like Gemini bought the last one on the shelf for now. Thanks, Gemini.
What can I say except you're welcome? Libra.
There's a halal place up in Bethesda that I go to once in a while because they make a really good hamburger. And I didn't realize it was a halal place. And I asked, they had a bacon burger, and I got a bacon burger, and I took a bite out of it, and I went, this tastes a little off. So I took a piece of the bacon out, put it in my mouth, chewed, and was like, this is good, but this is not bacon. And I asked him, I said, what is this? And it's like, it's good, but it doesn't taste like bacon. And he was like, oh, it's beef bacon. I was like, there's beef bacon? Oh, it was good. But it caught me off guard completely.
Libra, since you actually like spicy hotness, not me, we're getting you a favorite bratwurst of the Swabian region, meaning southwestern Germany, Rotwurst, aka red sausage. Like most sausages, it's also made from a finely ground pork. But one of the ingredients to add to the spice is, and we have to tell you, we're so collectively jealous. So jealous right now. Bacon! As you cook yours, remember to cut an X into the ends of the sausage, which opens during cooking. Maybe even a row of X-shaped cuts along its length. So this week, those last instructions are treading super close to various things we're not allowed to say. Just know that we're fully aware of what we did, and we have no regrets. Actually, slicing sausages and hot dogs allows you to put more condiments on.
Says the person who's worried about having a heart attack.
Let's see.
Scorpio.
The item on this list that I'm looking for. You know what? I don't think I'm gonna say what it is, but I will type it in our chat so you guys can know what it is that's on the list that we shouldn't be saying that I was alluding to.
Oh, we kind of figured it out.
Go right ahead.
Okay, Scorpio. It might sound kind of pedestrian, but we're getting you good old Polish kielbasa. Known for its horse yoke packaged shape. This is a pretty versatile hunk of meat. If you want to add it to pizza, just freeze it slightly so you can cut off pretty thin slices by hand or with a machine. But please, please do not eat it cold. So this week, would you eat corned beef hash cold? Of course not. There's no reason to do that, ever. No matter what those heathens at Hickory Farms might tell you with their so-called summer sausage. Now, in defense of kielbasa and cold, if you have already cooked the kielbasa and you have managed to get it really, really thin slices, it makes a mean hoagie.
I'm not getting in the middle of that one. No, because there are little nodules of fat all through those things. They don't deserve to be eaten cold.
If, like I said, if you cooked it properly,
Doesn't matter.
then yes.
No.
Dude, have you ever had Genoa salami?
Dude, do you know how? Hold on. Do you know how I got my pregnancy weight? By Hickory Farms.
No. I don't buy the Hickory Farm shit.
No,
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. First off, if you've ever had Genoa salami versus hard salami, the reason why Genoa salami is much softer is not because it's thinly sliced. You can thinly slice hard salamis. It tends to be more tender and softer because it has a higher fat content. So if you cook a good Polish kielbasa, that the fat nodules in there distribute amongst the rest of the meat more evenly. And then if you thinly slice it after the day after, it's a really good hoagie. But you don't want to just take a bite out of the damn thing, cold. You're right. You want to reheat it if you're going to eat the whole thing again. That I agree with.
Yeah. And Bridget, no, the successive X cuts on the brat. That's where the Sagittarius. Italians aren't exactly in the middle of this one. Oh, you noticed. But hey, why exclude us now? Not exactly a brat in the German sense. Fuck, I gotta try to say this one again. Chevalata. I know I'm screwing something up in the pronunciation. I never learned how to speak Italian.
Chevalata.
Well,
Whatever.
the thing of it is, you know full well that the double Z in pizza is pizza. So I don't remember what a double T in Italian is supposed to be, but whatever. Chevalata can be easily found in most markets with sausages. Since they're filled with meat, it's hard to imagine them having a sweet flavor, but you might just find one that is. So this week, keep track of the versions you try out. When you find the one that you like, stick with it. We'll suggest the spinach and feta version. Pan fry it, then cover it in tomato sauce to go with your penne. If you're trying to figure out which one this one is by look, it is a round spiral, a relatively thin round spiral of thin sausage, and it is a thing of delectable beauty. I actually was tempted to buy some on the way home from my friends tonight, and I just said, you know what? I need to hold on to my money, so I'm not going to right now.
We're going. Would you like to sink your teeth into something longer but thick and coarse?
I am so glad you got this one this time.
Yeah, I hated you for yesterday.
You're suggesting Franconian sausage to the whole Franconian region. Imagine that. One of its main seasonings is marjoram, making it close in taste to the Nuremberger bratwurst, but juicier. So this week, please do not say Ich bin ein Nürnberger. The Germans forgave one American saying something like that once before. Don't push it.
Excuse me.
Classy bitch.
Jelly donut.
I'm dying here. Aquarius. While everyone else is getting these super fatty foods, we've lined you up with something far nicer to eat. Well, it's not exactly so much the what you get to eat, but the how you'll get. Well, it's not so much the how as the where. You'll get to have a fancy buffet dinner. Buffet is French for challenge accepted. But seated at the window in a round section of a Sydney restaurant that rotates, giving you a whole view of the city after a while. So this week, you've got a trip planned out to Sydney, Australia during the summer. Bring your swimsuit or don't, since there's a number of swimsuit optional beaches. And remember, no petting the cute little octopuses with the blue circles on them. I know you want to, but just don't. It's not good for you or them, especially you.
Yeah, this one, by the way... Sorry, go ahead.
I've got some Italian sausage waiting for me. I'm going to go get me some.
Okay,
now I'm hungry.
That is the best come on I've had all week. This one is actually based off of a place that my wife and I had gone to in Sydney when we were there. And yes, it's a circular restaurant with windows around the outside. The upper level next to the windows slowly goes around the outside and rotates. And this buffet also had, amongst other things to try and sample, roux. Not the French word, but the Australian word, as in kanga. So, yes, perfectly acceptable, because they're basically the equivalent of deer here in the Northeast.
Yeah, and to all any conservatives out there that might be listening to us libs really don't want you petting those cute little octopuses with the blue circles on them. You know.
More appropriately, don't call them octopi, or do, so that we know who you are, so we can punch you.
Yeah, but yeah, you know, if you want to agree with us libs, don't or moderates even, definitely don't pet those octopuses with the blue circles on. Pisces. I pre-read this one and I was like, you know, I've got a restaurant, an actual German pub about 3 hours from my house that serves this dish, and they are amazing. And yes, it's the real deal. Pisces, we know how pedantic you are, so you won't get anything to chew on except legalities. Nürnberger Bratwurst and Nürnberger Rostbratwurst, by name, are protected geographical indications, PGI, under EU law since 2003, and may therefore only be produced in the city of Nuremberg, or the Americans say Nuremberg, meaning we know you. You're going to be looking up local German-themed eateries and seeing if they have this on the menu so you can argue with the owner, aren't you? Don't. So this week, just listen to this dish a second, okay? These sausages are pork-based, seasoned with fresh marjoram, grilled over a beechwood fire, and served 6 at a time on a pewter plate with either sauerkraut or potato salad and accompanied by a dollop of horseradish or mustard. Yeah, like a real German mustard. Put aside your ruling and just enjoy one hell of a meal, would you? They're also served as a sandwich, believe it or not. Three on a bun, um, typically with mustard, um, and they are very very good. Um, I ended up also getting a plate of Spätzle as well, and man, when I left, I was not hungry. It was so good.
Those are your horrible scopes for this week. If you like what you got, you're one of only one person that asked for a theme this week, and that you're my people. But if you want a better or nastier one for yourself or someone else, you know how to bribe me. You can ask, because I operate heavily on vanity, or you can literally bribe me over at the coffee page, coffee.com/Icarus the Lunar Guard. I'll have these posted as usual, Tumblr, Facebook, Coffee, Discord, Blue Sky at the end of the week. You can come and join, and who knows, maybe they're ideas, and maybe somebody will actually ask me, okay, so how do you come up with these if you don't use brain-altering chemicals? The short answer is I don't even know. It just falls out of me, and that's all that we can do with it. It's episode.
You can blame me for the brat theme, but that's it. It wasn't even the theme that I was looking for, but that's okay.
It was cool though. Loved it.
I was thinking the other sort of brat.
Well, that's why I got the movie in there for you.
No. That's the whole BDSM channel. We don't do that on these shows.
Well, the movie food crossover was actually kind of cool.
It's episode 526 on the docket runner, Comfort and Joy. Now, I know. There's some people that are just like, that sounds like it should be sung, Comfort and Joy. Yeah, I know. A part of it came from knowing what was happening in the news this week, and I had to type this to myself while I was driving, I might add, so that I wouldn't forget, because I have a bad habit of that. Well, the version that I put out there publicly was about how in our times of crises, religions especially, will swoop in to try to give comfort, to try to help people through their troubling times. And sometimes it's, it could be almost any cult, really. I mean, if we loosely bill most religions as cults, and they try to give some way for people to experience less trauma, they claim. The question is, of course, are they all bad? Are they all less than good? Is it worth it? But there is also the subtext that may end up sliding in here, and I don't know if anybody's going to end up mentioning about it, but when you give comfort and aid to an enemy of your country, that is typically referred to as sedition or treason. And if your cult happens to be one that does that, especially the head of said cult, it should still be considered sedition or treason, as the case may be. But that may or may not necessarily be what we're going to end up describing here, especially considering that the topic for the 5-minute freestyle was history, and memory serves, there was another swearing in of a demagogue into a position of authority, who then commuted the sentences of people who were jailed for sedition or treason or something along the. I'm sure there's absolutely no connection whatsoever. So I guess we'll cover whatever comes naturally and see where it takes us. So we'll kind of go with part of this, and I'm going to open with something that I heard on The Scathing Atheist this past week. Noah was talking about, close, warm, personal friend of the show, of course. Noah was talking about how he grudgingly had an idea for how to talk to a youngin', I believe about, give or take about 10 years old, if memory serves, about death, because there was death in the family. And didn't want to cause all kinds of stir with family, because quite religious, and wasn't sure what to answer when the question inevitably will come up about what happens to us when we die. And he, for all of what he was saying, I felt that he was dishonest with what he was planning to say, according to what he had in his opening this past week. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily a ding on him. I do, however, think that the answer that he gave about, well, we don't really know what happens, though accurate, is somewhat misleading and not entirely wholly honest to the best of our knowledge of the world. The world, capitalized, by the way. Should we tell the youngins that switched off brain is off forever, and that the person that we knew that was in there is simply gone? That's a hard question to answer. And the reason why I was saying it was a dishonest answer is because, to me, the much more honest answer, the much more accurate answer would be, I don't know how to answer that now. Because you have to understand the mental capacity of the person that you're speaking with.
Mm-hmm.
Children are simply people without the extensive memories that we have. And without those experiences, without the long-term history to look back on, it's exceedingly difficult for children to be able to process what goes on around them, simply because they have nothing else to compare it against. They have nothing else to weigh the information through, and what to sieve, what to keep, what not to keep, what's relevant, what's not. And that's tough to try to figure out. I'm very much not the type of person to say kids should be told every last thing, because no, we don't do that about everything. We don't just tell children about body, sexual, anything at every age, because it's not appropriate. They're not ready to understand it. And truth be told, I don't know that any of us are really, truly ready to cope with death until it suddenly smacks us in the face, and we have to deal with it. We have to learn how to cope with it. But I also truthfully do not ever want to say to any person, no matter what age, we don't know what happens after we die, but just because we don't know doesn't mean that they aren't still waiting for us somewhere afterwards. Never, and I mean never, would I ever say that in any way to someone, because if there was the possibility of my wife's essence to still be there for me, I absolutely, without a doubt, 100% believe she would have already found a way. She would have already, kicking and screaming, found a way, unequivocally, for me to know that there was a place, a time, an opportunity. And I'm not the only one. There have been billions upon billions of humans on this rock who have had the same level of love, probably even more so than I, who were separated by the cessation of life in the brain. And the other had to be left behind.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want kids to be brought up believing if only you wait a while, you will be reunited. Because of one thing, and I forgot to go looking for it for the show notes. There has been at the very least, one report of some poor, sad kid who wanted to go and meet their grandparent, quote unquote, over the rainbow, so they tried to make that happen for themselves.
Yep.
So, admittedly, I kind of soapboxed this one, and I'm sorry for having launched onto that much, but I wanted folks to understand exactly the rationale for why I wanted to do this the way that it is.
You're not too. I don't think that's a bad place to position. Um, when my son was little and he wanted to know what happened after we died, I told him honestly. I said, "Look, we don't know. We don't have a definitive answer. Science hasn't found a definitive answer, and religion hasn't found a definitive answer. The difference is religion tells you they know, but they have no empirical evidence. And empirical evidence is evidence that we can test and prove whether or not it really is fact. So we have people who think they know, and then we have other people who are honest about the fact that we don't know. But whichever case you end up falling into later in life, you should never be in a hurry to find out because we have so many amazing things here and now to do. So instead of worrying about saying goodbye to loved ones and people, enjoy the time you have with them now and do the things that you want to do with them, say the things that you want to say to them so that you don't regret not having done that later.
Yeah, sideways to that, by the way, with tech saying, scientists don't know exactly what happens after or even at death, let's also...
We know what happens to the body.
Well, let's also remember, to date, science is still having a really difficult time with the question of what does it mean to be alive? There are a lot of answers that kind of work, but not definitively so, because when you start to look at other things about it, it's like, well, okay, but we've got this species on the planet that doesn't fall under these categories that you've just lined up, but we look at this and we're like, that is alive, but it doesn't qualify into the same things that you're talking about over here. So, death is weird, life is weird, and everything in between is just neurons.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's so many. Science is working on a lot of things about intelligence and life in the universe, life on this planet, and everything else. And what they really need is they need time. They need educated people. They need money. In some cases, a lot. Some cases, a little. But what they don't need is they don't need people telling them, well, if you don't have the answer right now, then you have to believe what we believe in our religious beliefs. It's like, no, 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 no. Religion shuts down thought. Religion shuts down education. Religion shuts down rationality and logical thinking. It shuts down the scientific method. It shuts down understanding.
Um, I hate to interrupt you on this one, but if you would, I'd like to broaden that out from religion to cults, because
Or even dogma.
well,
Well,
No,
I
I'll go
would
to
like to go somewhere with this.
yeah.
The
Which,
first,
by the way, Bridget,
uh
yeah, fuck you for what you wrote over there. Now, you all who are listening, watching, you don't know what she wrote. Just know full well, for me to go ahead and say that on air, amongst other things, without muting the microphone, yeah, richly deserved. So, thanks.
You're welcome.
they're talking
Um,
about what she wrote in the host chat. It's funny, but go ahead, Bridge.
the first death that I ever experienced, I was 10 years old at the time, and my grandfather was shot and killed in a bad police shooting. Um, that was really, really traumatizing to me. I had some inkling that he was just gone and I would never see him again. And when they finally closed the casket, I looked at him for a very long time before they even closed it, and I was like, I'll never see him again. Um, and that's not what I was raised, but I just instinctively knew that. And if I were trying to talk to someone, who is 10 years old and explaining to them, I would try to give them some comfort by saying that, I know that it really hurts to say goodbye, but they will live in your memories and your heart, and by the good things that they did and by following their example and carrying those memories with you and sharing the stories, and advise them to maybe write down some memories for later that they can go back and look at years later, what they remember about good times that they had and things that they're going to miss, and things like that. And then they can go back years later and read what those thoughts were like. I'm going to miss going fishing with Papa. He made really good barbecue chicken. We never got to roller skate together. Those kinds of things were going through my mind. And when I had said them out loud, uh, my mom snapped back at me and told me I was being selfish for focusing on that, because I was like, we never got to go roller skating together. And she called me selfish for saying that. But my mom, that's a whole nother that's a whole other thing, and I'm still in therapy. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, Tech and I, I'm sure could go in together and buy you a clue by four to ship to her.
Oh, she's full up, gone. I sent her. This is really well. I wasn't being passive aggressive. I phrased it nicely, but sent her a heads up courtesy text last night and said, uh, everything that's going on that is being tanked, like your Social Security accounts being compromised and your Medicare, you voted for this. Remember that. And I just wanted to give you a heads up that the entire financial uh, and computer systems have been taken over and compromised, and everyone that can assist is locked out. Just thought I would warn you.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Well, she was probably unaware of any of that because she's, totally in the OAN Rumble and Fox bubble. So she's probably not even aware.
It's amazing what happens when you're suddenly made to be aware of exactly what the face-eating leopard party is all about.
Yeah, and with the late night document drop on Friday night, which there's a reason why they dropped it close to midnight on Friday night. NPR, New York Times, Politico, and who else was it? NBC are permanently banned from the press pool and the conferences, and we're told to move their belongings immediately. And the new people are going to be New York Post, Breitbart, and I don't know.
I think it was
some other
OAN, I think.
OAN, yeah, are going to be attending and putting out news. And so she's going to be locked in that bubble forever.
Yeah.
And there's no getting her out. I gently tried and I failed.
Io, you are decidedly silent at the moment. Wanted to kind of check in?
The first death I remember, I was about 3 years old. And as a Baha'i child, nobody had me or explained to me anything. Nobody told me why my favorite teacher of religious studies at the time was gone.
Oh, that's
She had
even worse. Oh, man.
I wasn't allowed to go to her funeral because I was a child. I wasn't explained to. It was just that she's gone, she's dead. That's it. Nobody bothered to explain, not even with the flowery language that the Baha'is often have. The next death, of course, pets, stuff like that. But the big death was my grandfather. I was in the process of getting the duck out of fudge away from my mother. And my grandfather took ill, died of liver cancer about a month after I ran away. And I refused to go back to Canada because I ran all the way down to Seattle. And I refused to cross back over the border because I knew as soon as I got within my family's reaches, because my grandmother's and my aunt's pull at the psychiatric ward, they would have stuck me in there. My grandmother, my aunt were both Roman Catholic. My mother was a Baha'i and very much cultish. I don't remember any other Baha'i deaths other than my mother's. And my mother's death, the worst part about it was everybody coming up to me and saying that she loved me. Every single time somebody did that, and they knew that we were estranged, they thought they were doing a good thing. Your mother actually loved you. Your mother really loved you. Your mother spoke of you often. If my mother loved me, she would have put me in her will.
Mm-hmm.
She would have provided for me. And it was during COVID that she died. She had pancreatic cancer. She had had multiple strokes. She almost died a year or two earlier. And I actually was sitting at my computer going click, 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 and I heard her say my name. I'm like, oh, fuck. It was one of those feelings. I heard her say my name. And that was when she had her heart attack. I'm about 4, 5, 6 hours from her, including a ferry ride. And that just made me chill, and I was like, okay, please let me find out that she's dead. I found out she died, not through a friend of hers, not through a mutual friend, not through anything where it could have been somebody gentle. I found out she died because the Royal Canadian Mounted Police showed up at my doorstep, specifically my neighbor's door, but still my doorstep, looking for me to do a next of kin search.
Wait, where were you at? Wait. You were still north of the border at this time.
Yes.
Okay. I thought I lost track of something. I thought that you were in Seattle at this point in the story, and they came over to. Okay.
No, I got pulled back from Seattle, Tacoma area by my mother. She basically scooped me up and said, "We're coming home. You're never going to be anywhere near those people again. Rah, 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 rah. They're cultists. They're da da da." Those people opened my eyes to a lot of the religious cultism. They pointed it out. They showed me. They taught me what to look for, and I still see it, and it's just, ugh.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that not all community is bad though.
No, not all community is bad. The worst,
Tracy Harris is now going or attending services at a UU
the worst,
place.
the absolute worst part about my mother's death was about 3 weeks later, when I got a phone call from a member of the local community of Baha'is asking me if I would be willing to accept flowers from the local assembly that I grew up with, and because they were trying to honor somebody that had been their chairwoman and secretary, as well as also LSA member, local spiritual assembly member, for most of the time that she lived there. If I had said no, oh, that would have gotten back. That would have been, well, she said no, so she's a disrespectful child. So I had to accept this bouquet of flowers that I did not want to accept. And I begged my now husband, don't let it be the only bouquet of flowers. Don't let it be the only bouquet of flowers. About 4 hours before that bouquet showed up, a bouquet from my now husband showed up. My ex-husband, he ratted this disgusting email about how dare I even show any sympathy or have mourn this woman that was my mother because I hated her so much. And I hated her because I hated what she had become, but she was still my mother. She was my only parent because my sperm donor, who's American, fucked off.
Not it.
Oh, he's not too far from you.
Still not it.
I know. I've had other deaths. One of my cousins died. She was murdered. And the guy that murdered her basically got a slap on the wrist for mental health. And when I complained that I could not go and attend that funeral, another one of our cousins told me that I was being a narcissistic bitch. And it's like, no, if I attend the funerals, my mother is going to have a flip out. So I can't be there, and I want to be there. The other deaths in my family was my grandmother and my sperm donor's parents. My grandmother, I was 35 weeks pregnant with my youngest, and I was trying to get permission to fly so I could go there. And the doctor at the time said, no, I'm not letting you anywhere near that den of vipers because you'll have the baby early. And my other grandparents, my American ones, one of my cousins told me about one. I found out a couple days after he had died. And the other one was just last October, and I found out in December. I'm really pleased with my father's family. As for what to do with children, the best thing to do is to ask them, what do you think? What do you think?
Well,
if they've never experienced death before, they might have a really interesting story to tell you. You could have them color or draw what they think happens. Because children up until about age 5 are these really spiritual creatures of light, and they know things, but they don't know how they know it. And by about the age of 5 to 7, they start to lose it all.
One thing I want to mention that you need to be careful of is when you ask a child, what do you think? You have to be very careful because a lot of children are conditioned to hear that phrase and think, okay, I've got to give the right answer here. They're expecting a very specific answer, and if I don't give this answer, the right one, I'm going to get in trouble, or I'm going to get punished, or bad things are going to happen, or whatever. It really is. It, it can be really traumatic to hear that phrase. I, on the other hand, would say instead of asking a child, who's just asked me a question about something like this, instead of tossing it right back at them, I would mention, look, I have an answer, okay, and my answer is not necessarily the right answer because here's where we currently are as a society, as a species. But do you have any thoughts on what happens? I'd like to hear your thoughts, your ideas, instead of what I already know.
That's actually a better way to post it.
Yeah, because you're trying to encourage them to use their own mind. And kids at an early age, they haven't had training in rational thinking and logic problems and things like that. So they're that inner light and such that you're talking about it's just their amazing creativity that's not being restricted by rational thought, and so they can come up with some pretty amazing ideas, pretty amazing solutions to problems and so on, because they haven't reached that point in their life where they're not being restrained either by rationality or knowing that this should not be able to work. Like the phrase too dumb to know that solution won't work, and then the solution works because everybody knows that solution would never work, but then you got this one person, this one guy or gal that you work with who's dumber than a bag of rocks. They just go and do it and it works, and everybody else is like, well, how did that happen?
It works.
Yeah.
You know what?
The thing about church.
Hold on a second. Thank you. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say something. First off, thank you, Io, for saying that one, because now I've suddenly realized that. Well, my first instinct after you said, well, ask them to tell you first, is, oh my God, what kind of a bad person would I be that I wouldn't have just automatically assumed that I should be asking from them first what it is that is going through their head instead of dropping stuff into their mind to process. Holy shit. And that's something that I should have very, very much so have thought about. So, thank you for pointing that part out. It's so easy to completely forget that. I mean, yes, I was one that said, kids are just people who don't have the same level of experiences that we do, and I should have internalized that a hell of a lot better. Thank you for that. Holy hell.
That's why we have a panel. We've got different perspectives.
Fuck yeah.
It's churches and religious groups will take somebody in the middle of a crisis and start to work their brainwashing and start to work the patterns. Oh, you've just left your abusive husband? Well, come here and pray. You've just had this done to you? Well, come here and pray. I'm going to pray over you in order for you to get better. Here, you should read this Bible. I got given 5 Bibles when I left my ex-common law back in my early 20s. 5 different Bibles from 5 different religious groups. trying to get me to convert to their flavor of Christianity.
And they all burn like kindling the same way.
Yeah, and I got no clue what happened to any of them.
Burned and kindling, I hope.
Probably. Garbage, whatever. And you're homeless? Oh, well, come here, have a meal, sit while we proselytize to you.
Yeah, okay, pause, put a pin on that one for just a second. For those of you that wonder, why do we get all pissy during the winter holiday season with the bell ringers, with the red buckets and whatnot? Because that's exactly the shit that they do. Are we going to name names? No. We will tell you that it is the Red Bucket Brigade bell ringing people who have a temporary job bell ringing for donations. Yeah, they're the ones who do exactly that. They look all nice and everything until you read their about page and find out exactly what they are. Scum.
Yeah. I'd had my son and my other child, and I went to get the Christmas hamper from them. Yes, the Red Bucket Brigade. And I got prayed over because they wanted to make sure that the baby's father would be in their lives. He was my common law husband.
Yeah,
It drives me nuts. You're homeless, you're on the streets. It's sometimes better to be homeless on the streets and starving than to go into one of those religious churches that feed the homeless because they will proselytize over you.
Yep.
Sometimes.
On the other hand, on the other side of that coin, okay, if you can block out the bullshit mentally speaking, and you are hungry and you are homeless, and it's an option. It is an option to get a meal. It is an option to get out of bad weather. It is an option. You just have to ignore them. Say the word. Just because you say the words doesn't mean that's who you are, doesn't mean that's what you believe. That doesn't mean that you have changed your nationality or your upbringing or anything. It means you're camouflaging. Okay? And any hunter will tell you when you go hunting, you need good camouflage. Well, why do you go hunting? You go hunting to eat. Well, if you're homeless and you're hungry, and you have no options for food, and there's a church offering food for the homeless and the poor, and a warm cup of coffee or a warm cup of hot chocolate, or a blanket or something, but you've got to read out of the book and say hallelujah and amen and all that. Go for it. I mean, it's free food. It's potentially free bedding, potentially whatever. If all you got to do is do some, proverbial verbal jumping jacks to get it, and you can go, oh, this is stupid. I don't believe any of this. This is not me. But you can say the stuff and pretend. Go for it.
yeah, small
But
problem.
the hard part is that some people can't do that.
Yeah, Bridget, bringing you
I
into
can't.
this one. Because, hold on,
Oh,
because
okay.
you, amongst us, have gone through military training. My question, is there ever a time during early basic training that conditioning would be happening, even if it was just quote unquote passive conditioning, if you will, where it's just the meta of it all?
Oh, absolutely. One thing was on Sundays, they had a choice between a Catholic service or just a general evangelical whatever service with a smoking area outside, and those who did not go to these services stayed behind in the barracks and had a quote unquote GI party where they buffed and waxed the floors and cleaned the lockers and scrubbed the toilets and things like that. So, yeah.
So the reason
And
why,
of course, we all went to church to not have to do that, because we knew that we could chat outside before the services and have a smoke or two.
yeah, the reason why I wanted to ask that question and in that way is that even if you, even if your choices are poor, to put them nicely, and you go into these groups and you do your best to block out stuff, it isn't exactly something that you can always win at because, well, let's face it, when you're down on your luck, as it were, you're kind of going to take in whatever you can, and any little bit of good or niceness or self preservation, whatever goes along with it, is still going to stick with you. That sound fairly accurate to you?
Mm, I mean, yeah, you're gonna have a self-preservation struggle going on anyway. It could cause issues with your own moral values or your thinking. Um, People like myself now having gotten out of a cult would avoid that like the plague
Because
Mm.
because,
because you can now.
well, I can now, uh, but if I were, in a vulnerable, desperate situation like that, I can see where I could get sucked back in and not intending to. Um, because when you are at your most vulnerable, they know how to play on that, and they do, and they will. And some of them are very good at it.
Oh, yeah. Um, Two
Yeah.
words: Dianetics.
Oh,
Hmm.
hell.
Hmm.
Oh,
If I were looking for options and I was in a desperate, time and had to turn to a religious organization of some sort, I don't have any locally because I have checked. Closest one to me is in Indianapolis or Louisville. But a very liberal leaning uh, friend's house, aka Quakers. Now, there are several flavors of Quakers, and they have split several times over doctrinal differences and things. But I have a couple of friends, actually, I've got four, um, that do have meeting houses where all they do is they show up at the meeting, they read whatever they want to in silence, they think, they contemplate things, and just hold space with each other. And then if someone feels like they have something to say, or they need some help or whatever, then they, will speak. It's not a scheduled service. They don't try to proselytize, at least in the ones that my friends go to. And it's more of a community. Now, not all Quaker denominations are equal. You do have some that are very evangelical that do have sermons and such, which is why they have splintered all over the place. But the ones that my friends go to tend to be more liberal and left leaning and pro social justice and peace and, you know, saving the earth and being good caretakers and caring about everyone, humanity. Yeah, they're more like secular humanists in that way.
see,
Um,
See, I was
And
talking more of.
and I would look to those types of communities if I had to.
Yeah. Tech, go ahead.
See, I was talking more of a survival situation where you're out on the street and you're hungry, you're homeless, you don't have a penny to your name, and you see a soup kitchen. You know it's a Catholic or Christian or whatever. It's run by a religious organization, but you go in, you get some food, they sit you down at a table, they say a prayer, you say amen, that you eat and you get out, you know, or they may even provide a bed for the night if you're willing to listen to a single sermon or something. I'm not talking about joining the
Oh,
organization.
no, no, no.
I'm talking about more of just taking advantage of it for a to avoid, a negative survival issue.
Yes, and I totally am on board on that one. My point is that even even though that would be the plan, when you are in those types of straits, how
It
how
depends on the person. It really does depend on the person because, like Bridget said, you can, and you pointed out, there is passive conditioning. Now, you passive conditioning can be countered with awareness. It just depends on the person. Some people are very, very susceptible to passive conditioning. I was very susceptible to passive conditioning until I realized what the heck was going on.
yes.
Once I, so if I were in a situation where I have no home, I have no job, I have no money, I have no livelihood, um, and I have no food, and I haven't eaten in several days. I know that there's a soup kitchen I can take advantage of. I know what they're going to do, and I know how to buttress my mind against it. However, that is not everybody. And that I realize for some people, just going in once could be suck them into the vacuum, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, one of the people of the homeless of
I got to
Seattle.
step away for a few minutes, just so you know.
Yeah, one of the one of the people of the homeless of Seattle. When I was homeless, this was a guy that smelled. I could tell he was an alcoholic. I was trying to stay sober, which was really weird. People were wondering, how come you're sober? You're on the streets. Because I don't want to do drugs. I want to stay safe and be able to keep a clear head. Anyway, I, this guy was like, do you know where there's food? Do you know where there's food? And I was on my way to one of the soup kitchens, and I had timed it so that I was going to miss the proselytizing. And I had missed it. Now, the lineups go out the door, but if you time it properly, you can get there. And the food might not be the best, and it might be the bottom of the pots and stuff, but it's still food that you can eat.
Mm-hmm.
I got him there. He ate food, and I managed to brush him off of me because he was literally holding on to me like I was his life raft or something. And I got out of there, went to go and crash at a friend's place for the night. And about a month later, I go to this other church thing for an evening meal. And he's there, and he basically worships my feet because of what I did taking him to that first soup kitchen. He was able to get and have the ball rolling to get him help. And I just looked at him like, okay. It wasn't me, it was all you. And he still had all the creeps on me, and I went and got myself out of there. Now there was a soup kitchen that I liked going to up in where I lived in Canada, because if you were not there at noon, but came about 12:30, the proselytizing was gone and most of the crowds were gone, and you could actually eat relatively in peace. Up until about 12:30, it was huge crowds. It was all the homeless, everybody that was wanting food and all this. And some of those poor people, I don't want to say I pity the homeless, but I've been there. I've been 3, 4, 5 days soiled with clothing covered in mud and whatnot. And it's not fun.
It's not. I was there
I
briefly myself, so I get that.
One of the guys that I know in that area was managing to get donations for showers for the homeless. And one of the community centers would allow the homeless to shower so they could at least get clean. And I don't like talking about when I was on the streets. I got threatened with my life. I got threatened with sexual stuff. I got a knife aimed at me. I had a gun pulled on me. I don't like talking about that because, you know,
Save it to say you had
I survived.
threatening experiences.
Yeah, so one of the things that I do locally is I try to advocate for the homeless. You know, you got to do something for them because they're going to freeze. You got to do something for them because right now with the fire hazard, a small fire in one of their communities could destroy the city. You got to do something for them. You got to do something for them. And I'm going to keep on harping at city council here about the homeless situation. And I'm not the only one. There's a homeless advocate that actually sued the city and won, and the city still hasn't put toilets where they're supposed to put the toilets. I know.
So from here, it's difficult for us as non-religious people to try to find ways of being able to help in substantive ways because we don't want to be doing anything other than helping, because we want to help without influencing in the wrong way. There is a euphemism that I'm going to use, and I'm letting you know it is a euphemism. There's a reason for it. For the children of the night, or the people of the night, it's an expression that is typically used to gently make reference to the homeless. However, it is also an expression that will be used in some localities for shelters under those terms, under those names. So if you are looking to help a group, you might be able to find a humanist or a secular or non-religious group using that expression, that term, either in their name or as a search item or whatnot, to try and help them out, where they might be in a better position of helping out. And anything to help a group that's already established, instead of trying to start our own to help with these things, is a better thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So please remember that if you want to help, don't try and do it yourself. Join a group that's already trying, because together we work better that way.
One of the things that has driven me absolutely batty are the one, Oprah's car giveaway, where she gives cars to people that need cars, and the people that end up having their homes completely torn down and rebuilt because dream home, they've got issues in the family and they need these dream homes, blah blah blah. Well, just because it's charity and you're being generous to somebody and you're supposed to be helping them doesn't mean that the help actually helps. It could hurt more. That new dream house that's been built, suddenly the person's taxes triple and they can't afford the house anymore, so they have to move. That car that Oprah gave, at least the first time, people couldn't actually afford the taxes on the car, and they had to say no to the car.
Or
And
potentially the insurance, because depending on what car and what area.
they say beggars can't be choosers, but that's just it. Beggars should be able to choose. Beggars should be able to say, no, I don't want this. It's going to be more detrimental.
Better still, be nice to not have beggars, people.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me.
And you want to talk cult? AA, NA.
Ooh, give the actual full names on both of those, by the way.
Alcoholics and Narcotics Anonymous.
Uh,
Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous.
narcotics. Okay. It sounded to me like you said necrotics.
Necrotics.
Anonymous. So I was a little worried about okay, so there's a D&D group that's going on right now. And
anyway, judges will force people into those treatment plans, and there often isn't an atheistic or non-secular version out there. It's only the religious version, and one of the tenets is that you have to let go and let God. No!
yeah. Yeah. By the by, Lexa, do see you over there. Hi. Funny you should say that one, because there have been a couple of cases that came up where people who were incarcerated specifically wanted to use one of the secular alcohol treatment programs, and listed for the court several, I think is what it was, and the court basically said, well, no, you're going to use this, or you're not going to do anything at all, and you're not going to get out because of that, and sued the court, and if I remember correctly, won. Again, that's going to be another one to see about adding to the show notes for this.
Yeah, Penn and Teller's Bullshit actually had an episode about that.
Oh, did they?
Yes, they did.
Oh,
Penn and Teller.
Good. Oh, they're so good, guys.
Penn's quote about the amount of people that he wants to R-word.
Yes.
0. That's the amount that he wants to do.
Yep.
He doesn't need morals. He doesn't need morality shoved down his throat. He wants to do 0. He doesn't need some holier than thou spirit telling him not to do it, or else he'll get punished. He just chooses not to do it.
Yeah. How many people do you go out there and hurt? 0. That's the number that I want to do.
And that's the thing that pisses me off the most about Christianity. Let that poor man rest in peace. Just because you want to be able to sin and have somebody absolve you doesn't mean that it should keep on going on. Let that poor man rest in peace. Take responsibility for your own actions. 2,000-year-old scapegoat, and he's still being used as an excuse as to, I'm going to go and have fun and do this, and tomorrow I'll do my absolution and get my soul cleaned, and I'll still be able to go to heaven.
Yeah, after that weekend at Bernie's time too. Don't forget. We're getting really close to needing to wrap up, and considering that I've let us go way too long the last couple of weeks, I want to try to start hitting the brakes right about now. The piece about this whole thing that I want to make sure that we hit, because it was a last piece that I kind of mentioned before we launched into the whole damn thing, the comfort and joy part that I was making reference to back in the I forget exactly what year it was. It doesn't really much matter. Somewhere in Germany, I don't remember if it was East or West, because at that point it didn't really much matter. Somebody got installed as chancellor, I believe was the term at the time, for and got everything ramping up for World War 1.5, and what's the word that I pardoned. I forget what it was, 3,000, 8,000, whatever. It was a non-zero number of people that were involved with crimes against the government that he was the one that instigated said crimes and whatnot, but never had things deal with him for there. Considering that he wasn't French, I guess that's why he was still allowed to still be alive. Some people that know what I'm talking about right about there. Well, again, it would appear that that type of comfort has come round yet again, bringing joy to some. So I want to really quickly make mention that of those fine young people that have been commuted and brought back out into the general society, a number of them are becoming very well known because they're showing up in police blotters very quickly.
There was a grandma that said that she was sorry and she refused to accept the pardon. And one, possibly two, that have been killed, unalived, by whatever, I think it was the police that did it. And a couple more have found themselves right back in jail.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're going to get new pardons.
Well,
and at the same time, Luigi, there's like silence from his section because the media understands that most Americans are actually cheering for him and jury nullification might happen.
And apparently the folks in the cell blocks and whatnot around him have been very appreciative of him, and he's been very nice to them, using his commissary fund, which apparently has been paid into by some of the public. He's been used to what was one of the things, help one of the other inmates with their medical bills, because that's a thing that needs to have happen when you're incarcerated.
Yes.
And yeah, you know,
Yeah,
And
you
a-
do have
and a-
medical bills if you're incarcerated. That is true.
yeah, and
And there's a certain PD that is very, very angry because Luigi's getting all the attention and PD is not getting any of the attention from the other inmates, and he's basically ranting and raving and threatening physical harm on Luigi and more. And the other inmates are doing the circle the wagons thing, which is just making him even angrier.
so yeah, the whole Spider-Man 2 thing, you want him, you're gonna have to go through me. And I was
hierarchies in those institutions.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. Oh, and as a reminder, can these people be pardoned again for stuff? No. No,
not
and-
state
and-
level. No.
Yeah, because a federal leader is able to deal with federal charges, not state level charges, because state level charges are for the, if you'll pardon the expression, the fiefdom of the city state that is whatever the 50 states are. I was going to say 51, 2, 3, 4, 7. I don't, how many? Wait a minute. How many properties and territories do we have extra at this point? Because there's DC, there's Puerto Rico, the American Samoa,
Virgin Islands.
Virgin Islands. I mean, I forget what the other one. I'm pretty sure there's like 2 or 3 others. I will admit I'm not the best on geography. I'll admit it, but you know, this is me. All of a sudden, at the top of my head, all of a sudden, the brain kind of going, "Ooh, which ones are they?"
Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, American Samoa, Northern Mariana Islands, and Guam,
Oh,
as well as D.C.
so I okay. So it's only 2 that I missed.
Yeah, you did. You did good off the top of your head.
That's
I
not
couldn't
bad.
remember either.
That was not bad. All right.
I would have had to Google it.
But what's interesting is that all of those wonderfully pardoned people could end up back in jail because a certain, state could say, let's do this. Let's charge them at the state level. And then they can't get pardoned.
Funny enough, Stephanie has just made my night right now, saying, quote, at least one of those pardoned insurrectionists found the state officers waiting for him when he left prison, as he had outstanding warrants Oh, joy of joys. I
Yeah,
hate it
for
when that
sure.
happens. I mean, that's the equivalent of, okay, I was, all right, it's not right. Um, I was about to say, this is about on par with if Jake Blues had been released from Joliet, and as soon as he stepped 1 foot off the property, they grabbed his ass and dragged him back in there to Frank Oz because he had other warrants yet to be served. And that would be wrong. That would be wrong.
It's the entire thing of the prisoner has been born again, blah, 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 in prison, and therefore they're an outstanding Christian. It's like, no, I don't think I want to be a Christian if I'm going to go to the same heaven as those guys do. I think I'd rather go to hell.
Yeah.
At least then there's scientists and fun people there.
If Professor Feynman is in hell, I'd be more than happy to take my walk down there. Thank you very much.
Likewise.
And
I have-
Carl Sagan.
And Carl.
I have the keys to a Porsche.
And my wife. My
And
wife,
Mitch.
who was Catholic, who most assuredly had premarital sex with me at least once. Yes, I'm going to get away with saying that because I will continue to say it. She was the kinkier one of the two of us, and it pains me to say that now. Because she can't laugh at that because it's true.
She probably is laughing.
I can only hope. But in any case,
I still love the whole. For people who are not familiar with the name Rowan Atkinson, he's the gentleman who plays the character, one of the big
One of the-
character
Mr.
names. Yep, Mr.
one of the
Bean.
characters, yes.
And
Back at her.
he did a live stand-up, which was made up of multiple skits. Falling asleep on a bus, falling asleep in church, the amazing Jesus, and so on and everything else. But one of the skits he does is where he is dressed up in a suit. He's got those little toy horns on his head, with a clipboard and a cigarette, and he is playing the devil, and he's welcoming you to hell. He goes by Toby because he wants to be a little informal as well as infernal. And it is an amazingly funny sketch. I'm not going to ruin the ending of it but it does apply to what we're talking about. And I put it in the show note chat, so hopefully it'll get embedded in the show notes later. And if you have not seen it,
Oh, it's a great skit. It's a great skit.
please watch it, because I don't care what side of what faith you're on. Understanding that he's a comic doing a comedy bit, this is hilarious.
Oh, it's good.
Oh, it's absolutely hilarious.
Oh, there's also Wake Island, Howland Island, Baker Island, Johnston Atoll, Palmyra Atoll, Midway Islands, Kingman Reef, Jarvis Island, and yeah, all the different parts in the Pacific that are technically American territories.
Yeah, but they're really small though. So I mean,
Yeah, they're probably don't have any population
I mean,
other than the scientists sitting there going, "Was that a wave? Yeah, that was a wave. Cool."
I'm guessing at least one of those was previously only inhabited by Tom Hanks and a volleyball. So
No kidding.
Yeah,
sorry.
speaking of funny skits, there's one, trying to remember off the top of my head, from Emo Phillips
Oh yes.
about
Yeah, Rowan Atkinson.
Hey, I'm a Baptist. Me too. I'm whatever synod. Me too. And then, it ends up with heretic because they're not in the same.
Shout out to Hell's Bells on both YouTube and TikTok. That series of the Help Desk, HELLP desk. where everybody pretty much gets sent to hell, and one of them's a Karen that ends up being called Ruggy. She throws a tantrum and ends up being a rug. And then there's Sharky, that was a foster child that I'm not sure how they died, but their abusive parent made their way down to hell, and the Hell's Bells dealt with the abusive parent. And Sharky prefers hell because there's all of their friend playmates are there, like Lucifer and so forth. And Rowan Atkinson did a priest skit, which is funny.
Rowan's work is just amazing. He's so much fun, and his daughter is a fucking phenom because she gets to do little YouTube shorts or TikTok shorts. I don't remember which platform it was on, and she's got these things where it's just like, oh, do I look like my father? Let's see. And like side by side, and it's just like, oh, I would hope not. Or something to that effect. Anyway.
We need comedy with what's going on. We need accurate reporting of the facts, which is we're not going to be getting anymore. Because the press conferences are now screwed up. We need patience, and we need to resist.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people are not familiar with Beau the Fifth Column channel, which I know that some of us in the show are. But there is a video out there that goes over something called Rule 303, which the short definition is if you have the means at hand, you have the responsibility to act. He did a revised version of Rule 303 during COVID, where giving examples of how 303 could apply when you have so much going on that you're responsible for could be, taking a minute to help someone change a tire, offering to babysit kids if somebody needs to go to an appointment, just something simple, but being, perfectly okay with stepping back and shutting down and recharging yourself if you need to, because self-care is so important. And then after you've had your self-care, then when you're ready, you step up and do what you can. And any good action at all is a good thing, whether it's building a sense of community or sharing some information that might help someone, or if you have no money, share some information, or try to connect with some other people that can work together, but with this right now, with everything going on, it could be something like, I don't know, showing up at a school board meeting if there are sudden winter storms happening, with a sign to voice your displeasure at compliance with the wintry conditions and where to go get some new boots. But self-care is highly important, because if you are not well rested and you don't eat properly and don't have time to dial back and step away from the news and things, then you're not going to be any good to help anyone else.
Yeah, fair.
They're trying to separate us into groups. They're trying to scare us. They're going after legal American citizens that were born here They've gone after the Native Americans, and they've also gone after the undocumented.
Yep.
They're trying to break us up into smaller groups so they can get rid of us.
It's good info. We're gonna keep that one because there is stuff that we're gonna have to do with that one, but we do have to finish wrapping over here. Tech, last item for you.
I think everybody's kind of touched on everything. Just keep your friends close. Know that depending on who they are as a person, they might be going through some really tough times right now. They might be going through less tough times. But keep your friends close. Help when you can. Watch for the quiet helpers. Help them out as much as you can. And know that things are about to get a lot worse. So do the best you can. Do what you can do. Take the breaks like Bridget was talking about when you need to. But don't just remember we're all human. We need breaks, we need downtime, we need sleep, we need rest. Don't do it to the point of where you're killing yourself over it, okay? We haven't gotten to that point in time. And, you know, I'm not saying be a prepper, but be prepared, okay? If you see a sale on your favorite clothing, get a couple extra pairs. If you see a sale on your favorite foods, learn how to freeze those foods before you buy some extra so that they last long, you know? Maybe change some of your diet that you can change that to foods that take well better to freezing for long-term storage. Like for example, I love fish, and when I see that there's a sale on already frozen fish, instead of just getting the small little package, I'll get the big package, portion it out, put it in the freezer, and then I have fish ready to go when I want fish. So if the price of fish skyrockets in 2 months, I can take a fillet out of the freezer rather than worrying about how I'm going to buy fish at the grocery store. You know, it's the same thing. And you know, be prepared that some things you like you might not be able to get for a while once those tariffs start to the results of the tariffs, the effects of them, not the threats, but the effects, which can take a little while to actually be seen, actually start being seen. And also be prepared for the fact that I'm wrapping this up. Be prepared for corporate greed. Just because a tariff goes up 25% doesn't mean that the food cost or product cost is going to go up 25%. That company that makes that product may decide, well, I'm going to raise the cost of it 40%, blame the tariff, and pocket the extra 15%, because we've already seen greed in price inflation when there shouldn't have been any at all, with no excuse. So just be prepared as best you can.
Okay. My last piece on this is going to be this. The original part about this, subtext aside, was supposed to be about how cults, usually religions, will come and swoop us up at our most needful times and basically be carrion scavengers of the souls, for lack of a better way of putting it. We know full well it happens. And it's not just religions that are doing it. It's the people who have been angry and upset and feeling that they don't have anywhere else to go to, looking for a community that will help them. And unfortunately, in this particular situation that I'm specifically thinking of, help them with their xenophobia, with their fear and uncertainty and doubt, with their racism and their elitism, and yes, their ignorance, their painfully obvious and willful ignorance. Cults of personality are a thing. There are no lack of opportunities of finding out about it. Jim Jones, for crying out loud, being one of the most notable, or shall we say infamous ones in our lifetimes. But the idea of also giving information that can possibly be untrue, because it's a little white lie, if you will, to those who are impressionable, young, about certain things. It's nice to be able to try to be gentle about stuff. You don't want to be, quote unquote, the brutally honest guy, because, I mean, that's not really helpful. But how about before even needing to get to that point? Don't allow people to simply become taken away. Some of us just lose people because it just happens that way, and I get that. We all get that. We all have that happen. I've lost several individuals over my lifetime where they were just plucked from my lifetime, plucked out of my circles, just by your leave, just gone. No opportunity to have a goodbye, to even recognize that there could have been, there should have been, or even worse, at least one of them where there was the possibility, and I was dissuaded from going to have one last opportunity to speak. Before you even have to have that discussion with an impressionable mind, try to make sure that they have every opportunity to speak with someone that might be in danger of no longer being in their life. Record stuff, write stuff down, bring a little tape player, record videos. We can do that now. We have the technology to be able to have a log of ourselves. It doesn't have to be this, I want you to know things. It doesn't have to be a Jor-El moment. Because it doesn't have to be that grandiose. It could just always be just always remember I love you. It doesn't have to be big. It's the little things that make all the difference in the world. So with that, we're going to call it a night. Thank you very much for being with us, everyone. We hope that you had a good time with all of us, found something worthwhile in all of our perspectives, and you got something to think about for the week ahead. As always, guys, over there in the chat, thank you very much. Lexa, good to see you over there. You can type more next time. It's always good to see you. But seriously, thank you. Stephanie, also, thank you very kindly. I will be looking for that link over there on Blue Sky. Whenever you've got something to link to us, yeah, if Discord's still being a bitch to you, just make sure that you tag the account for your post so that we see it. Because at the end of the show, it's it's 2:18 local time for me. So brain smooth bad. So yeah, any opportunity to kind of make sure that you shovel it my way so that I know that it's there, be greatly appreciated. But still, thank you. Please stay warm and please stay healthy, guys. Io, as always, thank you very kindly. You have a safe week ahead. I hope things are still working out safely for you guys. And for what it's worth, I know I haven't linked it in any notes or anything anywhere, but I've seen a couple of videos of the tanker aircraft following behind a spotter plane who set off like a smoke signal, and the big ass plane comes leaping over a hill. And by leaping, this is not a small aircraft. And they just kind of come up over the rise, they come down and dump all this, like a DC, I forget how big they said this thing was, like a DC-10 or whatever the hell it is. Oh my God, you fuckers up there with these water tankers are fucking nuts.
That's because
Jesus.
we've had one too many wildfire up in BC, Alberta, and Ontario. And the ones in BC, because a lot of BC is mountains and just mountains. Did I mention the mountains? By the way, there's lots of mountains in BC.
I've heard that.
So trying to get to where the fires are, let's just drop water. Let's just drop the fire retardant. I haven't seen or heard anything on the little bit of the news that I've been looking at, but it seems to have quieted down to where things are okay, because we had rain last week. Remember? I chirped up, it's raining!
Yep.
Yeah, we had rain for a couple of days, and I think we had some thunderstorms, but I don't know if there was any lightning strikes. I don't really care. I haven't had to use oxygen this entire week, so I'm happy.
That helps.
And I hope you stay safe and warm.
Well, the warm part of that ship has sailed, but thank you.
I know where you work, so I hope you stay warm and safe.
Fair. Bridget, thank you as always. Glad you're able to make it again. I mean, this is becoming a little bit of a personal best weeks so far, I think.
Yeah.
And who gets your ire for the night?
Uh-oh.
Oh, wow. So many choices.
Go Bridget, go Bridget, go Bridget, go Bridget, go Bridget.
I'm gonna give just a general big go fuck yourselves to the people who had the ability to detain the convicted felon like 2 days after J6 and lock his ass up until pending trial. You screwed all of us. So all of you, and a special shout out to the turtle who refused to convict in the Senate, even though he knew that he should. Go fuck yourselves. Sideways with a flaming cactus.
Go Bridget, go Bridget, go Bridget, go Bridget.
I'm very much on board with this one. Tech, glad you're able to make it. You take care of yourself. I think it's safe enough for me to go ahead and say, I hope that you remain blissfully unaffected by anything going on in your overall neighborhoods. So you take good care of yourself. You stay safe, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing what I can to get through this. Right now, the biggest thing is employment. While I'm not one of the government people or military people being threatened by the current administration, I know that I only have so long as any government contractor only has so long until their contracts are up. And then the way those contracts are going to be written and bid upon and approved and the requirements for them and everything else is probably going to get really, really touchy. And I foresee a point when it comes to that point in time where it's going to be hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My best hopes for you, man.
Yeah. Luckily, I have skills to fall back upon that I can use, and I also have some other things I can fall back upon. So I've already mapped out a couple courses of action depending on potential future events. But some of those I really hope I don't have to take. And I'm also worried about you, man.
Dude, if you need if you need money so bad, you can come to me. I don't have much. If you're gonna go ahead and whore yourself out as the bearded lady again for another season with the circus, no, come to me. I don't have
There's no more
much.
circus, dude. Didn't you know that? Like, there's no more circus.
Yeah, the circus has been dead for about 6-7 years now.
Yep. In fact,
About 6 months before The Greatest Showman came up, the last circus other than Cirque du Soleil, gone.
Then where have I been spending all this money on correspondence courses for? I've got some paperwork I have to look through now.
Yes, you do.
Great. Okay.
The Greatest Showman, literally, about P.T. Barnum, it came out 6 months after the circus.
yeah, the last performance of the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus was in 2017. And the thing is that I know this because that was the same year I took my son to see a circus for the second time in his life. And that was,
Okay.
you know, he wasn't, we didn't go for the final last show. We went really early into the year. But yeah, it was fun, but it was sad.
It makes me wonder if Ripley's is also on the chopping block. Ripley's, believe it or not.
Okay.
I loved Ripley's.
So I'm not gonna get my pin in pin juggling then, am I?
Oh, I mean, you could always join the Renaissance Fair if you want to be a juggler.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, I was gonna say that's a really bad suggestion, and then I suddenly realized, well, I could be distracted by cleavage, acres and acres and acres of cleavage. So I don't know.
There's
Maybe.
much worse things that you could do.
One of my
So
friends
why-
was trying to cheer me up at the Renaissance Fair because I was having a very depressive time in my life. And one of the ladies he knew there personally did this funny thing that he didn't warn me about. And what she would do is she would go to one of the artists. And this woman was very top heavy. She was very buxom. And she didn't care if people looked. She always got a giggle out of it. So what she did was, is since people would look, she decided to have fun with that. And what she did was she made sure that she always wore the garb and corset that would emphasize everything. And then she would go to one of the artists to draw an eye, a human eye, not with eyelid and everything else, right? And eyelashes and such, not an eyeball. One on each. And they introduced me to her, and I looked her square in the face because that's what I do. I look people in the face when I talk to them. That's what I was taught. And she goes, "Hey, mister, my eyes are down here," with both her fingers pointing down. And I looked and I saw, and then I realized where I was looking. And I looked back up, and everybody was laughing because my face was beet red.
Fun fact, for my 13th birthday, I bought myself a juggling course. And I spent my first 13th birthday learning how to juggle.
Cool.
Am I any good at it?
I joined a juggling club when I was still in high school, and I would juggle while walking the halls. And, you know, when you have that many kids trying to knock the balls out of the air or bump into you to make you fail, you learn pretty quickly.
It's true.
You know?
And
They also learn not to mess with me because they get a juggling thud to the back of the head.
and my
I just wanted to learn how to juggle in order to improve my hand-eye coordination. It had been 6 months since I took a smack to the head with a frozen cedar log and broke my glasses. And my balance was slightly off. So I with
could
my
also just
allowance,
get an
I
Atari.
paid it.
You could just get an Atari and play some video games.
the last
My mother did not allow a computer in the house until
You're
after
an
I
adult
turned
now.
22. I know.
the last
And I
thing
don't have Atari. I've got Wii's.
the last thing about this whole damn thing, some years ago, went to Ren Fair, and I saw this woman had this wonderful carved leather corset. It was in 3 sections, main section in the front and 2 sections kind of going to the side, laced together with, like lace, like shoelaces, laces kind of thing. And I had my good big camera with me, and I asked, could I take a picture of it? Because I love the carving and whatnot. She's like, oh yeah, sure. And she did the whole scrunch together and lean forward a bit. And I'm just like, no, I actually wanted to picture the carving and the corset and everything. And the disappointment of, oh, okay. And she like brought her arms back down and stopped emphasizing everything. And I got the picture that I wanted. It was like, oh, you were disappointed. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's when you take your first picture and you go, okay, now do what you were doing before, and I'll take a picture too.
Yeah, well,
I was at an SCA event. Somebody managed to snap a picture of me. I realized that there was a problem with the picture when it got pointed out to me. But that was after somebody said, hey, can I use this picture for a Shea Geek card? Shea Geek is a card-playing game where you try to get Slack points. And they made me into a girlfriend.
You go, girl.
I know.
you do
Like,
that.
The card game had a couple of extra cards so you can make your own.
Fair enough. So, you have yourselves a good night. We'll see you very soon. Of course, if you want to be in touch with us, best way is over in the Discord. Link is in the show notes. You can tag me over on Blue Sky. Be more than happy to see you over at HCTV. And beyond that, as mentioned, we will get through this together. It's not going to be easy. We will get through this together. There is no other way. And I'm going to use somebody else's expression right now. If you want to know how to get through this with us together, aim to misbehave. Because we aim to misbehave. We'll be here for you next week. And the last item is, I have decided, perhaps against my better judgment, in May, I will be doing my last 36-hour radio stream fundraiser marathon. I am going to do it, and I will talk about it more later, because I will require assistance to make this work the way that I want it to. I'll let you know more about that later. So, until the next time, as always, I wish you all the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well, my lady. It is going to be 20 goddamned years. And I am still in love. Mwah. Matane Fujin. I love you. I miss you. Dream of me. Till the next time we're together, everyone, as always, good night.